Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens. Today's episode, I have thoughts. Your job is to make choices. Oops, sorry. My name is Glenn Gers. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Writing for Screens, a channel I have set up in order to teach some tools and skills and tricks that I learned in a 25-year career writing for TV and movies. I am on my way out of the business, and I am leaving behind in these videos stuff that I had to figure out for myself in the hopes that you will find it useful and it will save you some time and suffering as you figure out your way to write your stuff. Because you got to figure out your own way. I cannot tell you the right way or the wrong way. There is no right or wrong way to be creative. There are things you can learn to try to see if they fit with you. And that's what I'm here for. I do not have a system. I do not have a plan. I've tried to break my lessons down into unique individual little lessons. They are on my channel. This is a little screen capture of the channel page. If you look down at the bottom, there are some playlists. This is a close-up of the top 3 playlists, the first 3. And each one of them, as you see, has a thumbnail that says a topic, flashbacks, genre, dramatic action. If you want to know what I have to say about those things, that is where I want you to go. 24/7 free lessons. Each one is about 10 minutes. Then these live streams, which I do every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is how this channel helps you. If it does, I hope it does. And I'm going to briefly say hi to a whole bunch of people. Hi, Dr. Gonzo. I'm doing okay, I think. Hello, Sonia. Hello, Sean. And Ellen. Happy summer. Hola. I can't pronounce your name because it's typographical, but I'm going to call you Jazzy. Hi, Darian. Darian, I have your questions queued up to answer later. Hello, Tiago from Portugal. Hello to Portugal. I have heard so many wonderful things about Portugal lately. Hello, Doreen. Great to have you here. And Helene. And this one more. Oh, this one. Which one? This one that I just, the main one here? That's great. Hello, Wolf Powers. Sure, everyone should thumbs me up. Hello, Michael. Okay, so let's talk. Let's talk about the top. Yes. Yeah, there you go. Right. Make choices. Let's talk about this topic because this topic, I came to it from a bunch of different things that were entering my zone of consciousness. That's why I have this I have thoughts format, because we definitely will do questions later, but right now I just want to talk about these 2 topics that both lead to the same answer. Hello, Vikram. Very nice to meet you. Okay, so the first way that this came up for me is over the years, I collect interviews with writers and quotes from writers and behind-the-scenes stuff. And what I have discovered, of course, because I find that like I hope you're getting from me, I get from other people, of how do they do and see what they do. I may take some of that. I may not. It may not work for me. But one of the things I found is so many famous, brilliant writers don't do what I teach. They don't, not at all. They would think that what I'm teaching in these videos is nuts, is wrong, is not going to work. And that is fair, because the one thing I do try and teach is everyone has to figure out the way that's right for them. We all come to it with different brains, with different personalities, with different taste and different influences. So therefore, we're going to do things different ways, and we're going to need different things. So all I can do, and I think all anyone can do, is offer up what they know so that you can try it out, because you just may have never thought about it. So I just wanted to talk about a couple of these interviews I've read where people have said that they do things very differently from the way I break down the work process. Hi, Randy, and hello, Errol. Good, we got a good crowd. So the first one is George Saunders, who I often talk about because I think he's a magnificent teacher. I haven't really read that much of his stuff. I just read one short story. However, his How to Write book, and I'm going to recommend it again because I do think it's fabulous. George Saunders, A Swim in a Pond in the Rain. Here's another way to see that. In which 4 Russians give a masterclass on reading, writing, and life by George Saunders. It's a book. It is a book based in his class. I believe he also has a Substack where he gives daily or weekly lessons. Anyway, this guy is brilliant. And he says that he writes by finding a voice, locking into some character's voice. And then he just kind of riffs and loses himself in that and creates the story. And obviously he has to go then and work on it. But and he's quite the craftsman. I mean, there's no question that he knows what he's doing. But what I find fascinating is I could never do that. I mean, I could do it. I could write a character and riff. And admittedly, he mostly writes short stories, which is a whole different thing than what I do. But what I find fascinating is I'm capable of riffing. I'm not capable of riffing into structure. I'm not, and it's possible that his idea of structure, I mean, certainly the story I read, I would never have thought to write because to me it doesn't make structural sense at all. It's a brilliant story. Anyway, so George Saunders, he says that he writes by finding the voice and then just following the voice, seeing where the voice leads him. Then I read this thing from Claire Keegan, another short story writer, I might add. She was interviewed talking about her new book of short stories, and she said, the article said that she writes the stories as they come to her without giving a thought to length. Apparently she writes very concise, spare writing, and everyone thinks she cares about that. Apparently, I'm just going to read this. Stories often begin as a single image that gets lodged in her head. For example, an image of a girl staring down a well at her own reflection. Keegan revises obsessively, sometimes going through as many as 50 drafts, but never maps out a plot. Her quote, "I don't believe in plot, and I've never plotted anything. I don't think you can be in the paragraph if you've already decided where you need to be." She writes out her notes and scenes in longhand until she settles into a character's point of view, then switches to the computer. This note-taking stage can last years. Okay, so this is about as far from how I think and work as you can get. Once again, short stories, which are a very different structure and a very different style, and I don't know that you can do some of these things as novels, except, here's the thing, my next quote is from Vince Gilligan. Okay, Vince Gilligan plotted out Breaking Bad, aside from a whole bunch of the X-Files and a couple of features. He made Breaking Bad, and then he co-made Better Call Saul. These are magnificently crafted and structured pieces of work, broken into many, many, many sections, following out plots in very complicated ways. And apparently, one of the things he did was he said, let's not decide in advance where this is going. Now, obviously, luckily, he was coming to it from, he knew he had gotten approval to do Breaking Bad from the network. He had proved himself with the pilot and the first 6 episodes. And so therefore he could do whatever he wanted. It was successful and he was trusted. But he said, some of our very best ideas came at the 11th hour, many seasons into both shows. In hindsight, I like the way we did it. The longer it took, the more nervous it made us that we didn't have a clear road map. We found our way. It was a struggle, but we purposely didn't know how things were going to end at the beginning. We didn't even know halfway through, probably, because he was being led by the characters. And they said, for instance, that allowed them to discover in Better Call Saul, minor spoiler, that Chuck, Jimmy's brother, has a deep resentment of Jimmy, even though Chuck is more successful than Jimmy. And he said that they didn't know that when they created Chuck, they didn't know that's what Chuck was going to be like. That's amazing to me. It's amazing to me that they could develop these characters and write scenes with them, not knowing where it was going. So for me, I don't know how I would do that. I just start to think that way. But the thing I wonder about is, why can't you do that in the planning? Like, yes, obviously be creative, let yourself be open to possibilities and be led by the character, but why not do that while you're making the outline instead of while you have a show on the air, or while you are deep into writing a novel and you've already written a whole bunch of great scenes that now may not make sense with where you end up going. Although I guess the answer is they determine where you end up going. I don't know. I don't know how to explain this, except everyone is different. And that is my point. My point here is there are excellent writers who don't do what I teach, and the message from that is not I'm wrong and they're right, because even what they say doesn't agree with what the others are doing. The answer is you need to make choices based on what's good for you. Like Vince Gilligan enjoyed the stress of having an ongoing network show or cable network show and not being able to say where it was going, which I understand. That was partly because he had done a decade or so in that job and knew how it worked and trusted himself and his crew. Cool. Wonderful. Yeah, that worked for him partly because of who he was in his nature. He didn't want to overthink it. He wanted to be as creative as he could. I personally feel that there's going to be so much going on a daily basis that you want to have certain things decided. However, I'm probably also over-controlling. And that by opening up the way that Vince Gilligan is, he can allow the other people to bring their creativity and it doesn't throw off his plan. That's cool. It's not the only way. Other people I know run shows where they hash out every beat of every scene and then they hand it off to the writers to write, and then they rewrite and then they rework. But it's not like there's a right or wrong. So what you need to do to take from this is there are possibilities and you need to choose. Your job is to make choices. And that is hard, and that is scary, and that is the possibly the worst and best thing about being creative. There is no right answer. You have to choose, you have to bet. You have to say, I'm going to gamble on this one. I am going to trust myself and my skills and my abilities and this world to let this work. That is the answer. That is what I am trying to get across to you, is how many different ways you can do this. And that my way, I hope, is helpful, but it's not the only way. Hi, Randy. As you work in any creative medium, the artist needs to pay attention to the happy accidents of the medium. Yes, that is true. On the other hand, you don't want to just have accidents. Now, there are some people. Now, this is one of the things I want to talk about. A guy named Hong Sang-soo. I believe he is a Korean filmmaker. He has made 27 feature films in 26 years with budgets between $50,000 and $100,000. Often, he is the writer-director, director of photography, editor, and composer. The point about this is it allows him to improvise, as often waiting until he gets on the set to decide what the scene is or what they're going to shoot. He works very, very fast. He shoots movies sometimes in 3 days and edits in another 2 days. This is insanely cool. Most people could not handle that. That's not to say it's right or wrong. What I'm saying is it's really good when you hear from someone like me who's very into thinking things out, that there's another way to do it where you create like jazz on the now. As you will know from any jazz musician, nobody plays jazz who doesn't know how to play. But one way to do that is to keep practicing, to keep exploring, keep trying, and build your abilities. So the main point about all this is I just want to say that your job is to figure out what you are comfortable and creative and happy and able to do. And that may be writing something and as you shoot it and editing it in 3 days, and therefore working on such a low budget that you can afford to do that. It may be meticulous. John Irving famously said he needs to plan out every beat of every scene of every book so that when he gets to the writing, he just has to worry about the words. That's cool too. All I say is you should know the choices, and then you have to make your choice. Okay. So, it must be easier to stick with choices when the scene has been filmed. Yes. Well, that's the other thing. But this, it's easier to make, once you've made a choice, like once you've made a choice where somebody has done something, you can't undo it in this system. And therefore, everything that's going to follow has to work from that. And the only thing about that is that then you can't have necessarily a set plan. You have to say, I have to make out of what I have created my best thing, the thing that means the most to me. I think that's kind of cool. I think it's great. I would love to do more of that. I wish I had more life left ahead of me to experiment with making little indie films where you just make them up as you go along. I kind of did that once 30 years ago, but I still had sort of semi-scripted out and knew the characters and knew where I was going. And then I said, hey, if you want to improvise a little in the scenes, or I would toss out lines, but that's still improvise. That's jazz within a written structure. Hello, Donna. Good to have you here. So let's get to the next topic, which has the same answer because it was a question from a visitor here, Darian, and the question in a comment was divided into 3 parts. So let's take these 3 parts separately because each one has its own answer. The first one is, I hear that a good practice to make your work concise, deep, and generally better is, after your first draft, try to cut your work by half, and then once again, which leaves you with the best 25% of your work. And I have to say, no, don't do that. Now, admittedly, there may be some people who I don't want to say absolutely don't do that. I do want to say that the thing that knocked me out about this thought was how mathematical it was and how unrelated to anything except theory. Like the theory that if you cut down 75%, what's left must be the best 25%. That's a bad theory. What if you happen to write a great first draft? Then you're cutting 75% of great stuff. Even if you've got a 75% great first draft. Suppose you because that happens. Sometimes you just riff on something and it comes out really good. If you have to cut 75% of that, you may be cutting some good stuff. 50% of it could be really good. So the main thing is you can't apply some abstract theory like that. And the thing about that particular phrasing of it, here, I'm going to say, is how much it sounds like business thinking, business theory, like something that an MBA or a tech person would say about approaching a systemic problem. And this, I think, comes to something that I have very strong feelings about, and which is the concept of A/B testing, the concept of figuring stuff out by doing something and then cutting things away and just having the remaining part be more popular, more successful, and then you cut down the more. And if you keep cutting it in half, pretty soon you'll have like pure crack, pure meth. You'll have the thing that's so great, and that is only true in terms of testable results, which creative art is not. Creative art is not testable. To say, oh, this got an 80% approval rating. What does that even mean? Approval in what sense? Yes, you could say that 80% of this particular audience clicked on it. They may have done that for many, many reasons. Even if they were to review it, even if they were to say, I love this, the idea that there's 20% that you could take out from that, or that in some way art is a popularity contest, that whatever gets the most clicks is the best, is simply not true. It is only true in the sense of that metric. And this is really important that you recognize it, because we are living in an age where everyone seems to apply this metric of clicks or votes or dollars or whatever it is, and saying that's a metric of quality. But they're not. It could be a metric of popularity. It could be a metric of how many things have been fed in one direction. In other words, something will get more votes if it gets fed by the algorithm than the thing that doesn't get fed by the algorithm. So therefore, the things that are fed by the algorithm become more popular because the algorithm fed them, not because they were naturally good. Anyway, it's really, really important that you not think in terms of, I'm going to make my choices based on testing. You just can't do, like everyone in the creative fields has said, it's good to find out what people think. It's good to get a sense of it. But your job is to make choices, not to leave the choices to some test. You have to make the choice. And then you see how it does. And maybe if you learn something about it, but you're not learning that much from a yes or no test, a good or bad test. And this reminds me, Paul Reiser was talking about, he was on a very, very successful TV show. And he talked about the network coming to them with notes, and because they often would test shows. They would show the show to a focus group or a series of focus groups, and they would get them to rate when they were liking the show and when they weren't. So therefore you have highly rated scenes and then less highly rated scenes. And the networks said to them, what we want you to do is, if you get an episode, test it. Whatever the bottom ranking scene is, get rid of it. And the thing is, the moment you do that, then the next thing is the bottom ranking scene. So if your goal, which is mathematically correct, it is true, you will get the highest rated scene eventually. You won't have a story. Okay? Sometimes a scene is badly rated because it has to support an upcoming scene. You cannot just numerically test or popularity test or any other kind of test without the values behind the test to say this is good and this is bad. You have to make that choice. And that choice can often be, this may lose a part of the audience, but it's good. This may lose a part of the audience, but it's necessary. This may make this a smaller show, but it's necessary. It's the right way to do this thing. That may be the choice. And frankly, you never know whether that choice will suddenly open up to, wow, that's a surprise hit, as opposed to the testable hits, which are often failures. Often they'll test something and say, we know this is going to work, and then it doesn't. Anyway, I just feel very strongly that this concept that you can cut your, like if you cut your work in half by choosing what you think is the best, that therefore you've somehow boiled it down to a better thing. That may not be true. It's very, very important that nobody approach creative work from the standpoint of business. They are opposing, and I'm not saying that work has to fail as a business. I'm saying that you can't use business metrics to make creative choices. And the reason I say you can't is because we see what happens when you do. Of course you can. And of course you can churn out product as they do. And so much of that product, and I'm not saying that some of it's great, but most of the great stuff was created by people making honest, creative choices, not by somebody saying, hey, right now, little girls who ride horses are popular. Let's do a story about that. That's not gonna work. Okay. Get some comments. While you are consciously outlining and writing, your subconscious may be providing meta information. Yes, absolutely true. That is true. That is, in fact, it's not even a may. It is. Your subconscious is operating when you make conscious choices. And that's one of the things you want to relax into. And I talk about this in my video, which I called Instinct. Let me see if I have it here. I don't seem to have it here. Oh, well. Oh, yes, I do. Here it is. Bing. Instinct. You should take a look at that about this topic. And also, by the way, on this topic, contest versus library. This is one of my underseen videos that I really urge all of you to watch. But anyway, the point is, yes, when you are making choices, you are not making them totally rationally. You can't. There is no rational system of art. Okay? Whenever people create rational systems of art, they dead end. They lead to, there is a finite, this is the end of that. People get tired. People get bored of, all art should be black and white. All art should be romantic. All art should be whatever it is, propaganda that helps the society. Whatever it is, you can't do all art is anything. Hello, Hopfner. Good to see you. Hello, Tiago. Tiago says, I'm writing a short horror story for fun. I'm new to writing. How can I show characters' feelings without joking? I don't want to be repetitive. Well, there's a couple of ways. I'm gonna get back to Daria's question. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do this one after I finish the one I was doing. Let me just quick. Hi, Heath Kitchen. If I was told if a character has to do something, you should think of 20 different ways they could do it. Any thoughts? I will answer that in just a minute. Business is very linear. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes, actually, business is. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes art is very linear, and sometimes business is actually kind of sprawling. Yes. Thank you. I think my rant is AKA wisdom. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. And what's interesting is when you're in a creative business, I'm not saying you don't want to take business seriously. I'm saying you have to recognize within that business, the things that get rewarded are often creative, instinctual choices, personal choices. Like if you look at the history of the entertainment business, very often what is the biggest hit of any time is antithetical to what the business wisdom was planning. And that's part of what made it popular, what made it good. All of those things are possible. So the only thing about creative business, and this is a creative business. It's the entertainment and art business. And I'm not saying you should not pay attention to the business end. I'm saying that you have to recognize that business won't save you from being creative. Okay, let me get to the other parts of this question because they lead back to that same thought. So Darian says, okay, assuming I'm cutting stuff, and maybe not 75%, but what if I'm cutting stuff? How do I know that I'm cutting the right stuff? How do I know what's the good stuff and what's the bad stuff, especially when I feel all the things I've written are important? Yeah, in other words, you usually don't write stuff if you think it's bad. I mean, sometimes you do. Sometimes you say, okay, I'm going to write the bad version, I'll fix it later. But then you know it's bad. But I'm saying almost always when we write something, we think at the moment it's good. And the question then becomes, how do you know if it is? That is the question of art. It's a fair question. The only thing I can tell you is you have to stop looking outside. You have to stop asking me. You have to stop asking anyone. You have to check out all your thoughts, but eventually you have to decide based on you. You have to say, I go with it. I like it. And then I like it partly because it's sort of like a thing I liked in another thing. Sure. I like it because I think it's going to win over other people and make them react in a certain way. Sure. But the key to those is always, I like it because whatever. You can't do things because someone else says it's right. You can't find a measuring stick against which you choose to measure it. There is no such thing. Every creative work operates by its own rules. Sometimes those rules are a lot influenced by other stuff, and you can check the other stuff. You can say, if I really like, the movie Die Hard, figure out how it goes. Figure out how they made those decisions, how long their scenes are, how their characters express themselves. I talk about this in this video. Take art apart. I will put links when I throw these video names at you. After this episode is done, I will post a link in the description of this video. About 10 minutes after this is finished being live, I will post the links to these videos. Okay, but the answer is, how do you know if something's good? You choose, and then you release it to the world, and you see how you did. And if all of your instincts are bad, you have to wonder why, but they won't be. Not all of them will be. The other thing is you have to check who your audience is. It could be that you're showing it to people who are just not going to like it, or who have a personal investment in their relationship to you. And so either they may like it unnaturally, or they may dislike it unnaturally. If you show it to your family, they may be so worried about your ability to make a living that they will judge it unfairly. They will not get it. Sometimes you'll show it to your family and they'll say, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen, and they're wrong. The main thing is just keep showing it to people and then see. But the thing you need to do is you first need to get to where you can look at it and go, damn, I think that's pretty good. I like that. I like that I did that thing. I like that moment. I like that line. I like that character. That's how you decide. You cannot decide in any other way. You can decide, okay, currently stories with lots of short scenes are playing well, and I like them, so I'm going to make sure my scenes are short. Or you can say, I remember there was this one thing with this great long speech, and I want to put a long speech in. Those are choices you have to make. You'll get the rules. People will tell you, don't do long speeches. Sure. But you have to decide, if you want something, how to make it work. So that somebody says, ordinarily, I don't think long speeches are a good idea, but this one, that's okay. You have to make your choices based on you. There is nothing you can check against. Check against the things that you like and the reasons you're doing it. Check against the feelings you have about what you're trying to do and what it is. But then you just got to go with it. And then finally, the last part of this question is, and then when I do cut things, how do I not feel terrible about that? How do I not mourn them? And the answer is no, you do mourn them. You should feel that way. This is a part of art. It is, for me, so painful that I go out of my way to not write stuff that I'm going to have to cut. Like, I would rather take a little time planning, make an outline, think about whether or not a scene makes sense, so that at least I don't solve a problem of how am I going to make this scene a great scene, and then find out that scene shouldn't exist at all because the story is going in another direction, or that I've already done a scene like that and it's repetitive. I find that so unpleasant that I would rather put my creativity partly into the outline. Be creative and spontaneous and figure it out in making out the plan, so that when I actually get to making the scenes, I won't have to kill a darling as much, because at least I know the scenes make sense to me. They're already the right plan. You can't always tell, but anything I can do to not have to throw away work is worth it to me. And that's why I suggest it to you. For other people, they're fine with it. But if you feel that, all the more reason to try to plan your work somewhat before you lock into the creation of it. Okay. So all this comes down to the same thing. Your job is to make choices. The answer to all of this is you cannot turn your creative work over to any theory, any business plan, any competition that you say, oh, they made a lot of money, I want to do what they did. That's a thing, it's an element. Sure, you can look at stuff and say, I want to do what they did. Everything I ever did, there's something out there that I'm like, oh, I want to do what they did. But then once you did it, it's like, what's your version of it? All right, I'm going to get to those questions that we've been doing. But first, let me quickly catch up on our chat. Feedback from beta readers. Can you think of any reason I might regret waiting on? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can think. I personally find a big reason. First of all, I don't know what your confidence is like, but for me, until I like it, I don't want to show it to anybody because I don't know what I think. I haven't made my choices yet. Oh, this all comes together. Can you believe it? I need to have made my choices before I say to someone, what do you think of my choice? Now, admittedly, this means that most of the time I am not much in the mood to make changes based on other people's decisions. But on the other hand, if your confidence is going to be knocked down, don't show it to people. Wait till you have built it enough that you feel confident in it. A little bit. There are some people who are like, I don't know what I've got here. I need to show it to people, but be prepared to have your world turned upside down because you never know what people will say. And do remember, when you show stuff to people, very often their notes come from their need, their taste, their agenda. And you have to decide, is that valuable to me? I have a video coming in a couple weeks called Getting Notes, which is exactly about this. I personally would not show anything to people until I felt confident about it, or unless I knew I was very willing to really, really be open to the feedback you might get. That's my thought. Completing a third draft, I'll find myself tinkering with the scene. Sometimes after 3 days, I'll change to it. Yes, it depends. That will go on forever, and that's not a bad thing. You might want to say something about movies that are made by committee versus auteur movies. Yes. Well, obviously, everything that I'm saying is about people who have control over their own work. When you are working for a company for money, they make the choices. You get to offer your choices to them, and they say yes or no. But we are not talking about professional writing. Professional writing is very simple. You have to do what the people who pay you say. You have to. And that if that's a committee, you have to get used to it. And if the committee argues with each other, you have to do everything you can to please as many as you can. Yes. All right. Hi, B Junior. Watched your video on theme. I can't start writing without a theme in mind. I hate this. Is the theme the spine? Well, it can be. It doesn't have to be. Like, you're saying you can't start. Oh, maybe I'm misunderstanding. Are you saying I can't start writing without a theme in mind? That's your nature? Or that you believe you're not supposed to? The answer is, if you can write without a theme in mind and you're liking it, do it. There's no you're supposed to. I personally tend to find myself thinking about themes as I write and try to make those choices because for me, it helps me know what I'm choosing for. Like, if I'm going to choose something where it suddenly becomes horribly violent, I need to know that's, while it may be a cool twist, it may go against, I was telling a story about peaceful, resolutions. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is that the answer is you don't have to have a theme at all. like I said, you can just do whatever you feel like impulsively doing and let people figure out the theme for themselves. I personally don't work that way most of the time. Slice of life films sacrifice plot and often even story goal seem to survive because it's wrong. Yes, absolutely. That is absolutely right. And God bless them. That's great. There's no reason not to. This is your choice. There's no reason not to have a theme. There's no reason to have a theme except you choose because it makes your work better in your estimation. As I did say in the theme video, if you don't choose to have a theme in mind, it will still have a theme. Or at least people will be able to interpret a theme. And that's fine. If you're okay with that, cool. No problem. Medicate. I think you mean meditate. But if you need to medicate, also cool. Okay. Yes, reading a lot and living life will give you more to choose from in every choice. That is very true. I'm gonna remind everyone of this. Okay, when I talk about making choices, the more that you read and watch and experience in your life, the more you have the ability to make good choices. It's only helpful. Okay, right. It's only helpful to you if you don't know how you want to do it. Like if you're doing it because you want to know if it's going to be popular, don't do it. Screw that. Yes, I lean towards not showing anything until I'm really happy with it. I personally can't take it. It's just depressing to me. But the main thing is, if you think it would be helpful because you can't solve a problem, cool. Then by showing it to people, you'll see how well they react, and that may break things loose in your mind. But if you know what you like, then it's not helpful because it's never helpful. I have to tell you, people's responses to your work can be really great if they get it, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you like it. Honestly, at the end of the day, you need to say, I did this thing and I like it. I did this thing and it's what I wanted to do. And then if nobody likes it, you're okay. But honestly, if you do that and somebody likes it, while it is incredibly gratifying, it's not enough. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're moving on, you're moving on. The only thing that really matters to me is whether I feel good that it exists and that it wouldn't have existed if I hadn't done it. So, yeah, but that's working so long alone is the name of the game. That's the job. Okay. Hi, Michael. Some films have a scene that has nothing to do with the plot. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's no rule about any of that. Hi, Hasko. Okay. Oh, Hasko, you asked me about the stuff in my video. I want an explanation of that. You know what I'm talking about, right? Did you see that? I replied to your comment. Okay. So let's go back to Tiago's question. Tiago asked early on. Okay. Here we go. So Tiago said, I'm writing a short horror story for fun. I'm new to writing. So glad you're trying. How can I show characters' feelings without directly saying it? I don't want to be rude. There's a lot to do here. There's a lot of things you can do. The first way that you show characters' feelings is by, well, it depends. If you're writing a short story, like not a script, because this is mainly, this in theory is about script writing. If you're writing fiction, the number of ways you can tell someone's feelings are almost infinite. But the main ways that I know of are you can have them take an action, which in some way express it. Like if, what they do tells us what they feel. Because if they, try to to tell someone that trying to ask them out to a date, then you know that they like them. If they try to avoid they try to ask them out to a date, but they can't because they're too shy, then we know how they feel. They feel overwhelming fear of this passion they have. You want to try and show people's feelings by what they do, but also remember, people talk about their feelings to each other. They write them in diaries. They do all sorts of things to express it. We do that on a daily basis. We talk about our feelings to people, hopefully. The other thing is, in a short story, you can just say it. You can just write down what they feel. It's not a question of being repetitive. It's a question of giving away too much at a time. Like, if you say it, just say it once. He loves living in this house. He's afraid of fish. Whatever it is, you can say anything about their feelings in the story. You want to say that in a place where it has to do with what's going to happen. I would urge you to watch most of my videos, but especially this one, dramatic action, and this one, character. That's going to talk to you a lot about how we understand who people are and what they want. So I urge you to, like I said, links will be down in the description of this video about half an hour from now. Okay, next question. Okay, Heath said, I was told if a character has to do something, you should think of 20 different ways they could do it. My thought is, yes, but not 20. I mean, if you come up with 20, that's cool. If you immediately come up with one and it just is like, da, 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 that's the greatest thing I ever thought of, sure, just stick with that. You don't need the other 19. Most of the time, I personally tend to think of one thing and think that's probably it. But there's nothing wrong with spitballing a bunch of others, okay? They have to show that they are in love. They have to get to the birthday party on time. Whatever they have to or they want to. If the character has to do something, think of how many ways you could do that. Yeah, that's a great idea. That's brainstorming. That is a great thing. Let me talk a little bit about my video on that topic, brainstorming. Because I talk about that here. But the answer is, it's not so much that you should come up with 20. This is why it's so weird to me. It's like people come up with these things and they're like, come up with a lot, come up with as many as you can. Sure, that's cool. Come up with exactly 20. What if you came up with 17? Wouldn't that be okay? What if you came up with 2? Sure, that's fine. So my thought is, that's not a bad idea. It's just a weird, people express things in such weird ways of making these absolute rules that people then get hung up on. Like, so it'll be like, oh, I can't write this scene. I only came up with 17 ways. Don't do that. Okay. Okay. All right. So B Junior says, yeah. Why the theme? To me, that's how it happens. Yeah. Like, yes. And it's good to see you. Thank you. To me, theme is about why. Why does this story show this person having a happy ending or a sad ending? Why does this person take this action or that action? Those are from the beliefs that I have behind it. That forgiveness is good, or that violence is sometimes justified, or whatever the theme is that I'm choosing, that's helps me. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Hasko asked about, in my videos, he said there was something on the shelf that he wanted to know what it was. And I couldn't quite understand which thing. Because I'm happy to, if I put something on the screen, I feel I'm responsible to answer a question about it. I put it on the screen. Unless like the camera fell over and showed part of the things that I didn't. But there's nothing here that I haven't thought is that okay to have on the screen? And if not, I move it. I got some old slippers that are not in the shot. If I got something in the shot, it's because I think it should be there. Hi, Nacho. Okay. I like looking for theme through the 6 questions. But yes. I think that's useful. The thing about theme that goes beyond that is that you get into what you as an author thinks. That's what, like the 6 questions or the genre, they're about the characters. They're about the people in the world and the stuff like that. What's interesting about theme is that you have to say what you want to say. That's where theme, and in theory you could do a theme that you don't believe in, but why? Just that's all. Yay, I'm so glad. Thank you. Hey, Alexis. Ridley Scott describes sentimentality as unearned emotion. That's interesting. That's not a bad definition. Damn, Ridley, well done. But Spielberg is frequently accused of being sentimental. Yes, his characters earn their emotions. What's my take? My take on this is that this is a matter of opinion. Like some people feel that Spielberg's characters don't earn their emotions, or that the emotions are being foisted by the skill of the filmmaking, and therefore they are not actually earned by the character, they're earned by the film. That's, I think, what Spielberg... I think the 2 reasons that people would say Spielberg might be cheating on that is A, he can use his skills, put the swelling music, or that the emotions that they have are kind of easy to get to. Like it's, he sometimes chooses pretty obvious emotions, and I usually like it, but I can see how someone would say that's not really earned. But some people are just saying it's not earned because they think it's too easy. I don't like that. I don't believe that easy emotion is bad emotion, because a lot of real emotions are easy. So what are you going to do? Great. It's great to see you, Najo. And Jean, it's good to see that you see. Usually theme reveals itself after many drafts. Not usually. Sometimes, I would say. Sometimes I have a theme going in before I write any drafts. It just depends. Brandon Richards, hello. I was watching your video and processing. I loved it. So yay. That is wow. I was waiting for the but or the question. Thank you, Brandon. I'm really, really glad. This what's interesting about this is it sort of relates to the thing. First of all, I make these videos, I do this stuff based on my desire and ability to make a choice, to say this is what I think is important or useful or entertaining. The only reason I'm doing live streams at all is because I gained a certain confidence that I could make choices real fast in front of you. And the reason for that is because I spent so many, literally decades, learning how to be comfortable making choices, saying the thing, finding the thing and saying it. That's something you need to practice, that you need to build most of the time. The only reason I can do this now is because I'm old and I've been doing it for 50 years. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Gene, I hate feedback. Everyone who has lived to the age of 6 has a justification in writing about life for their entire life. That is true. It is true. Opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got one. And nobody else thinks the other person's is that interesting. But I think that the thing is, you hate feedback until you finish a work, and then you want feedback because you're showing it to people. And you do want, no matter what happens, you would rather someone get what you did, like it or feel what you wanted them to feel, than not. You would rather somebody not dismiss your work or misunderstand your work. And that's feedback. That's also feedback. So the answer is, if feedback is simply the back and forth response between the artist and the audience, yes. If feedback is, I need help making this decision, that's also cool. I need help recognizing what's working and doesn't work. That's cool, but that's a different kind of feedback. I have so much trouble making choices. I had so much trouble making choices. I couldn't afford to take feedback because I couldn't balance other people's needs. And also remember, most people give feedback in a way where the expression of it or the content of it is not always the best. Even if they have something that's really useful for you to hear, they may just say it in a way that's just destroys you or is not capable of being understood or so many things. So the answer is you have to remember when you when you ask for help and feedback with your work, you have to be willing to translate the feedback into what's useful for you. Once you get good at that, you can get all the feedback in the world because then you can translate and say, this part makes sense to what I'm doing and this part is because they want my work to be something different than it is, or because they just want to do it themselves. A lot of times people tell you what oh, I thought that this should have happened. Well, that's fine. If you wrote it, that's what would happen, but it's not what's going to... Sometimes you'll hear like, oh, I thought this should happen. You'll be like, why didn't I think of that? Because sometimes you just don't think of things, and that's cool. So that's my feeling on feedback. But we all do kind of want feedback. Okay. Thank you. The idea of the humility of someone who is putting something like 400 hours of video of his opinions and self-regard out there. But I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that. I do try to be relativistic, to say, because it's the truth of art is nobody has it right. We have it as right as we are going to get it. Okay. I get a lot more value from critical feedback than I do from pat on the ass criticism. Yes. Yes. It really depends. It's all I can say is it is really, really valuable to get feedback and to show people work in progress if you know how you want to use that and you show it to people who can give you useful things. One of the things I often find is simply I show stuff to people simply to say, like, is this slow? Is it too fast? Often it'll be like, did this literally communicate? Like, do they understand the thing I'm doing here? Because sometimes they don't. Sometimes I didn't do it clearly enough. 25's just starting with my career. Cool. NYU. I used to live on 7th Street between 1st and 2nd. So I didn't go to NYU. They didn't take me. But this is a long time ago. Writing BFA at NYU. That's very cool. It is difficult. First of all, how difficult, no matter how difficult it may be, you're doing it. You got through school. If you got through school doing it, bravo. You've already proved yourself. You've proved that you can do it. Now you just have to do more of it. But you're fine. You're going to be fine. Yes. Oh, that's the other thing about feedback. Yeah. Don't argue with it. I mean, you can argue with it once. You can say, oh, well, but there's no point. You don't have to convince someone that their feedback is right or wrong. You just have to take it and use it to the extent you're going to use it. You are not required to resolve feedback. Hopefully the people who are giving you feedback will understand that. If they don't, that is their problem. If they believe that you asking for help or feedback or notes means that you are giving over your work to their decisions, they got a problem, because that is not what should happen. Okay. Yeah, trust two people. Sure, that's absolutely good. And by the way, I am not saying that my personal quirks should apply to any of you. My relative lack of interest in feedback does not mean you should not get feedback. We're different people. We work different ways. Hi, Jeff. Showing your highlighters. I'm sorry, I have to remember that you guys are watching me read. And I like to read it out loud just so that those of you who may not be reading as fast as I do or do not read the language that we're in, I like to say it. I've been showing your videos on process to my writers group at my library. Yay! Folks are so appreciative of your wisdom. Yay! And yeah. There's a certain point at which I just watch the bloopers. That's it. I just do that. Okay, a couple more notes, and then we're going to sign off. Do producers still make money if a movie bombs? Yes, usually. Usually in professional circles, in union studio work, most of the time, anyone working on a project is being paid up front for their work. So therefore, a producer is being paid not that much often, although often, way much. It depends on the producer and how much they can get in their deal and how many producers there are. Sometimes you get 20 producers. But the answer is, in theory, everyone working on a Hollywood movie, on an American studio network professional production, is being paid, and that is how they make their living. They make their living for doing the work, however it turns out. The thing is, if you work on something and it bombs, people are less likely to want to work with you again. And so while you may make some money, you don't make enough to live forever. And so therefore you want things not to bomb, partly so that you are not associated with failure, because that is the entertainment industry works on voodoo, on mojo, on, that person worked on this hit, so therefore they must know how to make a hit, which, but that's how that works. And in fact, yes, everyone working in the business right now has a vested interest in getting things going, in getting them made. Then, and this is why there's a strike happening, in theory, the creative participants, the ones, quote, above the line, not the crew, but the producers, writers, directors, all get a bonus for success called a residual. So that if it plays a lot, they get more checks, and if it plays a little, they get less checks. And that seems right. That seems fair. In other words, everyone does a certain amount. You need to be paid a professional minimum to do the work. Then everything else is based on whether or not the thing brings in money. In other words, the goal is not to bankrupt the company. The goal is to not put your work into something, create something, and have all the reward go to somebody else. And that is the point of residuals, or back end, as it is called. And so the answer is, it's really, really important. It is really, really important that we all agree we're going to not go broke making it, but then the rewards will be proportional to the income. If you get more money, split it up among the people. That's the deal. Okay. Yay! I got your support, and I really like it, and I give you my support. I am telling you, you should feel like you should keep going. Anyone who does work, any one of you who gets work done and shows it to people should feel justified in doing more work. That's the goal. Play or pay fee. Yes. Pay, yeah. Well, also, do not forget, some producers are out to gouge as much as they can from the fees, and therefore they're like, hey, I want to be paid a lot up front. That's a budgetary question. If people can afford it, they do it. Okay. Do you plan on doing a video on the current labor? Yes, I did one a couple weeks ago. It was an AMA. It was one with the yellow logo. I will see if I can put the description down here. A link in the description. What about the strike? However, things have changed since then, in a positive way. So I will do another video on that topic fairly soon. You are welcome, Nathan. So I am going to say so long, and I hope that all of you will go write something.